Good evening. We meet you here again today on a Thursday. Discover Design brought to you by JS Institute of Design. Let me tell you what Discover Design is. Discover Design is a, a series of webinar which brings to you a lot of information about design of all kinds, whether it's for spaces, for products, for communication, for media. The intent of the Discover Design is to help us understand what design means, where is it applied, why is it applied, what does it mean in terms of bringing comfort, in terms of the use of the product, is there better economic or better industrial aspects because it undergoes a design process. Today we have a very interesting expert, and we are going to talk about revitalizing history for present spaces with Aman Nath. Before we go on to introducing what he has to say, let me give you a little background to what journey Aman Nath has undertaken in all these years. He's an Indian writer, hotelier, and architectural restorer. Our conversation is going to be a lot more about restoration and following that, the conservation of the architectural monuments that he's really well known for. He's also the co-founder and co-chairman of the Neemrana Hotels chain, along with Francis Wadia. Both are credited for pioneering the heritage hotels movement in India. Of course, I would love it if Aman is able to tell us how he started this journey. Was it to do with his innate talent, or did he sort of come across these opportunities during his journey in this area of history and monuments and restoration? I also would like to inform him that he's started his career as a copywriter and a graphic designer in advertising. That's really interesting. Quick word on myself. My name is Nien Siao, and I'm the dean at JS Institute of Design. I have more than 2 decades of experience in education and practice of design, but I'm really interested at this moment to bring to you what Aman has to say about spaces, and spaces which tell us the story, the narrative of what it used to be. And in these present times, are we able to experience what he set out to do? So welcome, Aman.
Good evening, pleasure to be here.
Thank
Since
you.
I'm a historian, perhaps we should start by saying that I have a 5-decade-old association with Jagdish Stores, which is the founder of your institute. And I actually, as a young copywriter, also went to Jagdish Stores at the original spot where it was in Ajmal Khan, and took briefs and wrote the advertising, which I still have somewhere in a trunk. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Before I ask Aman to carry on with a lot more details, let me invite the participants to ask any questions that you might have while our conversation is on. You are welcome to put down your questions. We will make all efforts to answer as many questions as possible. And of course, anything which excites you, please let us know. And anything you like, let us also know about that. So I'd like to invite you, Aman, to tell us a little bit about how did this journey start? What did you study? How did you get into this field at all?
Well, that's going back a long time, but I had stood second in India in the higher secondary, which is to say nothing, because, you know, your academic qualifications very seldom match up with what you do in life later. So when you were bright in school those days, everybody did economics, because, you know, there's a fashion of the moment. So of course I was expected to do economics, but I was not interested. And when I went to college, and by a process of elimination, I was very good at English. I wanted to do English, and everybody said, what vocation will that lead to, the IAS, etc. I ended up doing history, but not because I liked history. It was totally by a process of rejection that I arrived upon it. I happened to live in Nizamuddin, very close to the Himalayas too, facing an extraordinary Akbar period Mughal gate. And living in Delhi, spending a lot of time in the Qutub, in House Khas. Of course, one was very fond of monuments. And one can only look back and try and retrofit your story. But I remember that when we used to leave these places, whichever these monuments were, I always left some part of myself behind. And if it wasn't 5 o'clock and they said, now it's being shut, you're going to be shunted out, I would have happily stayed on there, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So that might be the beginning of my love for old buildings. But it's a combination of many things. You know, my parents were refugees from Lahore. So we had a wonderful ancestral house, which I heard about, you know, the horses, the cars, the badminton court and all that. But we had nothing, you know, here because they were starting life all over again. So I think it was also a certain longing for a past.
Mm-hmm.
From one's own family past to India's past. And then you get interested in the whole thing. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to now bring you to one of our topics of conversation, which has been talked about very often in the media, and that is the Neemrana Palace Hotel. Now,
Yes.
I do know this whole story about you. You came across this place when you were a young man,
Yes.
driving back from one of your historical documentation, I'm told.
Yes.
Would you just tell us about it? I'm really keen to understand.
I had actually been to with a friend who promised that it was very warm in Jaipur, and he promised that we would swim in the desert where he had 3 swimming pools. So when we arrived there, you know, they were not really swimming pools because they hadn't been used for many, many years. One was, you know, they had dirty water. One was a howdy, you know, which was just collecting water and then sending it to the garden and so on. So rather than just sit there, I took an umbrella and wandered about, and that place was Nawalgarh, which was full of Havelis which were painted. So I was absolutely fascinated. And I came back, and I had recently met Francis, who was a banker, and I said, and he wanted to make a film actually. And I said to him, come and see this place. So actually we spent 2 weekends filming, you know, these wonderful Havelis. And then that led to a book and so on, you know. But then during the course of that, or towards the end of that research, I saw this. I used to see it all the time, and it looked rather like a temple or something, because in the evening it caught the light of the sunset. And once we actually drove up to it, and then it was such a ruin, you know, that I can't say it was attractive, but to people who are who think differently, it was actually, it's called Neemrana Fort Palace because it's first a fort, and the palaces are within there, 3 or 4, 5, 6 complexes of palaces. But so there was this fortified wall. It was it had crumbled. It was very scary to enter it because you know, the rubble had really collapsed on the gateway, and there were trees and grass everywhere. There were bats. There were civet cats. So it was like a scary ruin. And but of course, anybody with imagination can see when you stand on the rampart of a ruin and see a sunset that the sun is going to be there. And if the ruin where you're standing had a garden, it would be that much better. And if you were eating...
In fact, we can have a look at the before the restoration scene.
Yes,
that would really be...
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
We don't have a pointer really, but if you could look at the picture on top and look somewhere on the left of it, then that's where I stood and looked down on the countryside, and in the countryside was absolutely barren and sandy. And then I went and met the Maharaja and said to him, but I believe you're selling it, because somebody said, he said, yeah, I've been trying to sell it for 40 years.
Okay.
So 40 years is a long time to want to sell something. And then and he said, if you help me to sell it, I'll give you a commission. So I thought, who's going to buy it? I did talk to a few people, and I said, I went back to him after a few Francis is not part of this because he was French and he couldn't buy, and he joined after Neemrana was ready, and 6 years later actually. So I spoke to two other friends. One is Lekha Podar and the other is O.P. Jain. And they were, Lekha had just arrived from Calcutta. She was wanting to get into culture and find her roots here. And so she got involved in different ways. Mr. O.P. Jain used to have exhibitions in Delhi selling old windows, doors and things, all that were knocked down material from your Ahmedabad. So I said to him that he really should actually be putting them back, so we kind of completed the cycle. So they became partners, and that's how we started it.
I'm going to ask you a question about a phrase which has emerged from this process of restoring old monuments into something that can be used. And I believe it's called Neemranification, which I'm not sure, is it in the Oxford Dictionary now?
No, not yet. Maybe it will be. No, Neemranification actually means that, well, let me just clarify because there might be some people or students who are new to this. Monuments can be classified in many different ways. So broadly, there are two categories. One is listed monuments. Qutub Minar, Taj Mahal, Ellora, all that, These come under the Archaeological Survey of India. And these will, the national responsibility at the top level. Many of these are now UNESCO sites and so on. And there's another category which are under the state archaeological departments, which are a little lesser important, so that the states would look after it. If it was in Rajasthan, for example, it could be Adhai Din Ka Chopra, which could be number 2, or and every state has many of these. But there's a third category, which is the unlisted heritage, which are just ruins. Suppose, if you are from Ahmedabad and your grandfather or great-grandfather had made a Haveli, which was broken, it's yours. It's an unlisted building. And so, unfortunately, you can do whatever you want with it. For example, it's not of national importance, it's unlisted. So you could raise it to the ground and make a new building. So what we are talking about, the Neemranification, is only about the unlisted buildings.
So it comes in this last category.
Last category, in which the government, neither the state nor the center interfere, which is fortunate, because even though it doesn't, they still interfere. Because, one of the hazards is that if you want to do something in this country, the attitude of government is changing, and changed also, I would say, has been that we can't do it, but we won't let you do it,
Okay, I think we're not going to talk about that, but I do want to talk about what your thought process was before you undertook this project. I mean, it's really in ruins. It's of course about, I'm sure you must have worked out your finances, but also about the thought process. What did you want this to become? And what was your vision about, building up ruins into a place for use? I was wondering why
so I'll correct you, because your questions are in fact all off the mark, if I might say. I had not worked out the finances. I had not thought what I would do with it.
You didn't?
So I'd actually
So you can still be a dreamer? You can be a dreamer and manage to make it a success?
No, I found a very interesting quotation again afterwards, so I can retrofit it. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Find purpose and the means will follow." So if you're sitting at the JX Institute and you were to ask the founder, did you have the funds to make this institute? It's actually putting the cart before the horse, because the ones who are the entrepreneurs, who are the creators, they have a vision. They know that they will do it, but they never have the means. Not having the means is actually an asset, because you work harder, you see. So if you have the means, you very often find children of families who inherit a lot, third generation, let's say, don't create anything.
Really, this is so encouraging to hear that, because I'm very sure a lot of these youngsters have dreams. They want to start off something, but you never have the kind of finances that are always required. So I'm sure that a time will come when you can actually really go into details of how you start this off.
You must, each of you, if you have a dream, you must pursue it. It will happen, So when it was bought, I'm just taking it back to history, it was originally selling for 1 lakh rupees for 40 years. But when somebody shows interest, I started to visit him and so on. Then another man got into it. He said, I don't understand the Raja, lawyer, etc. The price finally reached, 6 lakhs. So it was bought for 6 lakhs in 1986. And the 10 friends who went there, you might say 6 lakhs is not even the price of a bathroom.
I know.
But if it was cheap, it wouldn't have been on the market for 40 years,
Correct.
We're sitting in South Extension. If you tell me, the house next door is selling for 10,000 rupees, I would pay up right now,
Sure.
So it was selling, but it was not bought because nobody had the courage to attempt it, and it looked like a mammoth task. And the advantage of I'm not an architect. I've studied history, so of not being an architect, not being a finance person, not being any of the things that you needed for this, except the belief in yourself. And of course, I have always had an aptitude for design and a dream to live in old buildings. I actually thought I would do a room in a ruin and live in the ruin and write books. So it was not even designed as to be a hotel.
Right. So now this is the present version of what the before picture that you've seen. Tell us about the process. I mean, how did you, just in short, what were the key features that you really concentrated upon when you started the planning? And I'm sure lot of challenges. So a little bit of that, if you can hear about that.
I don't even think of it as a challenge. I think of it as a joy, really, because suppose you have to. Okay, how do I think? Suppose you have to climb. This is a 14-layered building. All right, you have to climb up 14. If you don't want to do the project, you would look at the top and say, "Oh my God, how am I ever going to get there?" But if you were me, I would say, "Oh, let me build the first step, and then I'll let me build 5 steps, and the next week I'll build 5, and before you know, you've reached there." So actually, if there's a lesson in this to be learned, is that nothing is too big for anybody to be do. I mean, look at the Ambani story, look at the Tata story, look at our Prime Minister's story. I mean, beginning on the ground is the best beginning, because at ground zero, the realities. You deal with all the people. People are rude to you. People are unhelpful to you. And every time that you get a slap or every time you're challenged, you become that much wiser, street smart, cautious, and one should just go on doing one's karma and laugh at the world. The people who used to say, my father set up an industry. He said when they used to first go and buy material I don't know if he could think it was anything. He said, they would bicycle to the shop, and that man would say, "Aha, kya chahiye bolo?" And then slowly they say, "Haji, Babaji, Lalaji, betho, chai pio." And then your buyer started going, then they would say, "Sahab, aap kabhi kabhi darshan to de diya." So you have to laugh at the world, but your journey should be your journey. You're not doing it to get the salams. You're not doing it to get the Padma Shri, which I was offered 10 years ago. And I said, who am I going to show it to? We don't do these things. We do it for the reward is in the karma itself.
Well, that's really being really large-hearted, I would think, to really have that focus.
I don't think so. So.
Looking at these interiors, it must have been a lot of, not only just restoring it, you must have done a lot of building, digging, and I'm told parts of mountains were removed or a lot of things were built. How were you able to build in these amenities required for a modern day living? And especially if people are coming here for, relaxation, they obviously would be looking forward to at least all these basic services.
Yes, actually, what I wanted to create was just something different. I didn't want it to compare with this hotel or that hotel or this chain or this standard of luxury. It was a new niche for tourism. So when I named it Neemrana Non-Hotel Hotels, I remember Mr. Arun Puri of India Today calling me, who's a good friend. He said, you don't, it's called something, something is negative. Why do you name that? So I said, not really, because we are preparing people not to expect something. You see,
Right.
because if you go to the room, it's a 15th century building, so 556 years ago, to be more precise. What do you think a bathroom looked like? There were no bathrooms.
There were no, right?
So you went out on the rampart, and there were little holes. So you sat on the rampart, and
And let it
drop down, and the pigs would eat it, the goats would come, or whatever would happen, because we're talking of medieval times. So you could have even carried it to that length, but the truth is that today we're used to attached bathrooms, we're used to all this. So in a ruin which is so old, if you had a wash basin where water came, just water came, you could brush your teeth, that was already, people felt a sense of luxury. They were not expecting a jacuzzi in Italian marble and all this, because, so we come to the other question we were talking about less as more.
Right. So, absolutely. I was just wondering, you have different names for it, Parvat Mahal, at Gajendra Mahal. So you named probably different parts of the palace.
Because, in Rajasthan, like you have a suite, Mahal also means the whole palace, but you can say Rani Mahal, Raja Mahal, Hawa Mahal. So little parts are corners. So every room is a Mahal,
So were you trying to give it a different identity? And was it visually very different because of that?
No, because see the one on the right that you see where it says Gajendra Mahal, that room is old from Ahmedabad.
Okay.
Since you have an Ahmedabad connection, you recognize it. So I went to Ahmedabad and I found extraordinary lacquered legs of charpais. So which people don't want, they want all these very straight looking furniture today. But a nice lacquered leg or a 4 legs in silver are so beautiful. And so they're strapped like old beds, but they have a mattress because you're used to a different standard. It has a patchwork bed cover. So the whole atmosphere is Indian. Neemrana is about fighting India's complexes. We're so busy trying to be somebody else, Everybody's, if you talk to somebody in Hindi, in many villages, they answer you in English.
Oh, is that so? That's the situation right now, actually, across India?
Yeah. So why is that? So they're telling you that you're talking down to me in Hindi. I know English because we've set up a thing, So in the hotel, people say, "मैं तो European kitchen में खाना बनाता हूँ." Setting as a standard, as if the European food was better, as if pizza was better than paratha. So Neemrana was correcting that you have to be yourself, And a lot has happened. I'm talking now 35 years ago. But if you go to Bombay, there's that restaurant called Swati or something, and it's done very much like a minimal, stainless steel tables kitchen. But you get khichdi of your dadi's khichdi and your, all the things that you go to a grandmother's house or you went to a grandmother's house and that you were ashamed. Somebody says, "Will you have Coca-Cola when you were kids?" You only wanted Coca-Cola. But today, everybody's drinking Chach.
That's true. So, I think there is a better appreciation of what you had at home. And your
Neemrana is that. Neemrana is that to be proud of what you have and not be a half-baked somebody,
All right. Sorry. Can we bring in the poll question, please? Okay. So the poll questions about what are the principles used to design in a restoration project? Simplification, authenticity, perceived heritage image, or all of the above? And let's see what the participants have to say about this.
Okay, great. How will we get to know?
They're going to come back with a percentage. Just give them 20 seconds. Okay. And there you are.
Wow.
All of them are saying
authenticity.
All of them are. So large numbers saying authenticity.
I think they've got it right too. They've got it right too because simplification is not always true. Suppose you were restoring the Umaid Bhavan Palace, let's say in Jodhpur. The city is not the thing because it's a palace, But in our case, it applies because we are talking of a 15th century Fort Palace, which was a very basic lifestyle. So we are not trying to put too much fuss into it.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep it simple. And one of the things we talk about is, when now in COVID, it's even more relevant. I've been saying it for 36 years, you know. I was saying less rather than more, you know.
So when you say less rather than more, was it the same applied for all your projects? I'm told that, of course, all your projects being very different.
Yes.
Did you have this common theme running through it, or did you have even within that certain
No, I
segmentation?
think it's common because we've not done, you know, any, I mean, like Tijara, you know, the gardens are very important. The rooms there are done by all the painters and so on. But you know, to a young audience, if I want to make them remember this, I just thought of a simile. When we say less as more, okay, we are talking about using honest materials. Okay, suppose you have a 700-year-old wall, as you have in our Kesroli fort. Somebody, you know, from the village came, यार साहब इसको हटवा दो, इसमें शो नहीं है. Okay, they don't understand what is patina. So when you have a lime wall, you know, which is like 700 years old, it's awesome, you know. And you've got a certain patina, it's black, it's got fungus, it's got texture. If you're from design school, you can say, go out and make abstract paintings. So your students will go and they can make frame, no, of the wall. They'll have rock stones, and they all look like Gaitondes. They look like Japanese paintings, because you have to have the eye to appreciate that. But if you don't have the eye to appreciate that, you'll say, get rid of it, it's old, get rid of it, it's old. So in India, I think we should value that, because when you go home, and if your grandmother is there, you don't say hide the grandmother. Some people do actually. Oh, we've got a guest coming, hide her because she doesn't look presentable. You know? So I think that a grandmother is always a grandmother. A bride is always a bride. So both have their place of importance.
That's true.
If you honor the grandmother, then the bride will be honored as a grandmother. We set up the bride cycle, you know. Saas bhi kabhi bahu thi means that, you know. So
history repeats itself.
Yes. So if you're honoring an old building, which is a very interesting point we could come to, that in India nobody was bothered about restoring old buildings. They were only interested in building in their own name. They would say, I have built this, usko tootne do. So if that is going to break, you're very short-sighted, because your grandchildren will also say, oh, Dada built it, let it go, I'll build this. So because this is true, because we are a living culture.
Correct.
And dead cultures cannot build this. So
you're talking about preservation going along with the living culture.
Yes, yes.
At this point of time, at least for us
in India. In India, this is a new consciousness. I mean, it's not very old, you know, but people say we started this consciousness in a way for large projects. Yes, because nobody was looking at these.
Right.
But so when you go to a ruin, when you say less is more, let's take a human example, okay? If there's a young lady and I say to her, okay, here are, I mean, a designer, young designer, here are 3,000 leaves, leaves or whatever, make a dress for yourself. Okay, so 3,000 is a lot, you know, so she could string them and, you know, wrap her body around, etc. And if I was to say to her, okay, here are 3 leaves, cover yourself with them. So she's going to be like Eve, you know, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So less as more. So if the 2 stand together, which will be more effective? You know. So the one who's underdressed is not always the one who's naked. You know, the one who's underdressed. Look at Mahatma Gandhi and George V. I'm taking other examples so people remember. When Mahatma Gandhi went to England for the Roundtable Conference, he went, you know, dressed because he was a barrister. He went in a dhoti, it was cold, etc. And he had to meet, he had an appointment with the emperor. So they said, Mr. Gandhi, do you think that you're dressed appropriately to meet the king emperor? So you know what Gandhi said? Gandhi said, I think he's dressed enough for the both of us.
That's a good answer. And I do believe that a lot of times we need to think through that. I just want to, so this is Tijara Palace, and I'm told this is one of your toughest projects that you undertook.
Tijara it was huge, but see the one on top, now that is done by Muzaffar and Mira Ali. So what I thought was that, you know, we don't honor individuals, like we have a design show, we have a fantastic designer, Rajesh Pratap Singh does a show, the show is over, it's folded up. Now, who is going to say that he's a great guy, he does fantastic work, that let's make a living museum to him? Because one day he shall all be gone from this world. So in Tijara, I thought that I would ask all my friends, because I used to look after the arts pages of India. Today I've been writing on art at their catalogs. I know all the artists personally. And I said to Anjali Menon, who had her first exhibition at my house in Nizamuddin, she came and stayed many, many years ago, I'm talking about. So she said, what a good idea. So we did an Anjali Mahal. She came and she's done a 30-foot fresco.
Wow.
And so it's fantastic. So all the artists have, that's the one below actually, the one on the right. You can see a corner of that. That's at the back is the fresco by Anjali. She's done a kind of mela and she's made members of her family. And the one on top is by Muzaffar, who, does beautiful films. So he's done a patina, which is gold. And so it looks like like a Lucknow thing. And
so that's a very special feature of this Tijara
So people
palace.
say, what's there to see in Tijara?
Yes.
You have to see each other's rooms,
Correct.
You have to say, you show me yours, I'll show you mine.
Absolutely. And I noticed that, some of the events being held there probably incorporated, those
This was for the French ambassador. Interesting in this is the floor.
Correct.
So what you see, this is a huge darbar hall. You can see half of it. It's double the size of that. And it's open on one side. And it's very dusty in Rajasthan. So I thought, they used to make jail daris. I went to Bikaner to see the looms. They were 60 feet wide daris because they were big darbar halls.
Absolutely.
But there were that many people. So imagine if you put a dari here, or if I bought a carpet for here, who is going to vacuum it, dust it, clean it, wash it? It's a full-time job. So I actually designed the floors to look like daris.
Okay.
So if people very often walk in and take off their shoes and get inside. It was raining one day. I was watching and they took off their shoes. They walked around and then they bent down and then they said,
this is not a carpet.
Yeah. So
that's one. I just wanted to know, this is about how things did happen. I wanted to know what in all your projects, were the community staying around the palaces and the ruins, were they involved in any way with what was happening? And how did you include them into these projects?
We can go back to the first project. In fact, it's the same process everywhere. When you land up in Tamil Nadu or you land up in Matheran or wherever, first thing is people are very suspicious. They first think of you as a crazy man. Because when I was 30 some years old when I got Neemrana, and I went with a friend, and I'd interviewed Rajneesh because I still write for India Today then. So they'd given me a press file, and there was a picture of Rajneesh which was on my seat in the car. So I locked my car and I walked up to Neemrana, and people, of course, those days a car in a village used to be something, and an outsider was curiosity. So the first article that came out in Neemrana were that there was that a smuggler had come. Smuggling was going to happen. I used to go with my ice box because there was no food, there was no water, there was nothing. I'd go with an ice box. I used to eat my lunch, and in the evening take the carpenters and the plumbers in my gypsy to the highway. We used to have a bath there. I used to bathe because I was a sahab, whatever I was, and then we used to sit and eat together. But people didn't understand. They used to say, "वो कुछ माल भर के लाते हैं चीज में, वो कुछ ले जाते हैं यहाँ से." So I was just carrying my food.
That was an exciting persona, probably.
Yes. But
how were they involved?
So then they got to know you. They broke ice slowly with you, and they because their image then was of some big saint who had come with a suitcase in dark glasses, landing by helicopter. When they met me and talked to me, they found that I was like them. And so we got to know, and you can, of course, in a crowd of people, you always spot the ones who are sympathetic, the ones who are, quick to act. So they started to get employed, So now, when so many people, and 250 people work in Neemrana, and I've seen in these years, they used to live in mud houses with thatched roofs. They've got double-storied houses. They've rented their places, studied. So the real joy of doing a project is not only about the color of the fabric or the angle of the chair. That also is there.
The communities have developed along with you.
Everybody around you. So recently somebody was writing a book, went to interview them, And he came back and he called me. He said, Mr. Nath, you should be very proud because at least 10 people said to me that they would give their life for you. I said, oh, why would they give their life for me? So he said, because they said you will give your life for them. Now,
that's a relationship.
Yes. That's bond. That's very important.
We have another poll question.
Lovely.
What is a non-hotel hotel for you? Okay, you have answered already a lot of that, but let's see what the participants think.
Well, I didn't answer that actually. It'll be fun, yes.
Okay, I'm going to hear more about that then after the.
Yeah.
Let's see what the poll says.
I can't read the 3 things. What are they?
Homely environment, customized to different personal tastes, deviating from the grid-like pattern of a modern hotel. So this is what we want the participants to come back to us with. And let's see what, Aman, you have to tell them. It would be lovely to have a little more detail about that.
Nice questions you made, I must say. Yes, they've again, I think, got it right, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
so my thinking on the non-hotel hotel was that none of the buildings that we restored were ever built to be hotels.
Correct. Okay.
So why do you build a fort? You build a fort to keep people out. Okay. So now we are redesigning it and refurbishing it to welcome people in.
Right.
So it's totally reversed. Here you're saying you can't enter, and then you're saying Badharo and and giving them malas and.
Okay.
So they were not built to be hotels, and they don't look like hotels. We don't have room number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So which is why every room is different in shape.
So there is a little bit of some echo and never mind. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that therefore we have individual air conditioning.
Right.
So
in
COVID now, for example, it's great.
Because there's no central air conditioning which people are scared about.
That's a blessing.
Yeah, it's a blessing. And also, suppose there's a fire, for example. There's no, escape plan that you have to leap down this building. You just come out, you're on your balcony, you're on your terrace, you're in a courtyard, you're in a garden. So the buildings are really safe, and something which has stood for 700 years is safe in another sense also. So you don't have a feeling of being in a hotel.
And I think it really makes the visitor, they're very unique to themselves because their room layout is different. The makeup is very different.
Everything is different.
And gives you a different experience all the time. Okay.
But it's interesting that those who are watching are absolutely on, they're on track because they understand exactly.
Yes, they are very much aware of it. So this is the Ramgarh Palace.
No, not palace. It's the bungalows they're called actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so we've just shown some examples of some of your
I'll tell you about these. These were abandoned houses which are duck bungalows in the hills. These were used as inspection bungalows by the Public Works Department.
Mm-hmm.
The British used to come. They used to come on palkis and spend the night here, supervise, make the roads, whatever administration, and go away. And the one below, the one you see at the sort of mud-colored one, is a house that I built. It was a cow shed really, and I then made it into a cliff house because it's on the edge of a cliff. And so they've been restored as English bungalows. They've got, chinches and flowered fabrics. So when you enter that, you feel you're in the 19th century, and you walk into that era. You see there, the verandas are English.
Okay. I want to talk about your INTACH phase and your involvement with that.
No, just one thought on the non-hotel also. Just one thought. That when people leave their house, we used to, you always say home away from home. Is a very odd statement, I thought, because suppose you live in South Extension and you go to the end of the world and you feel at home there and it looks just like your house. I mean, it's not the reason why you're traveling actually. The reason why you travel is to see the difference. Because I want to go. Yeah, not even comfort, because none of the Neemrana rooms look like your house. So I think that we should say it's the opposite of your house actually, really. It's completely different. It's different. That's why you're paying for it.
That's the, I think you really, you're talking as a hospitality person.
No, I'm talking as a traveler. I mean, I don't want to leave home and reach somewhere which just feels like home again, you know.
Right. I think that is something,
It
that
is,
is the reason why people want different experiences.
yeah, so you want to go to an ice hotel. Your house is not an ice hotel, you know. Or you want to go to an underground hotel, yeah. Or you, now I read somebody's made a hotel in an offshore rig. So you go boating somewhere quite far in the sea where they had made an oil rig, and on a rig which is very windy and crazy, they catch fish in the high sea, they grill it, and it's a memorable experience because you see on all the sides and doesn't look like home.
I think the,
Intact, you have to say.
uh, I'm not able to hear it on my end.
Are you talking at all? Can I be heard? No, because if I can be heard, I can talk at least. Intact, you were talking
So
about.
let's go to INTACH. You were one of the founding members of INTACH, a heritage and conservation organization established in 1984. Could you help us understand why and what was the purpose and the relevance of such an establishment with the kind of work you were doing, and perhaps with beyond that, what are the
Yeah.
other kind of things that you're doing?
I think that we had worked a little and realized that, you know, as I'm talking the unlisted buildings, that India is a huge country and we cannot go on telling the government that it has to do everything because the government's priorities were roti, kapda or makan. So if people have no food to eat and you're talking about, you know, pillar and its restoration, it was not in order. So it needed some private people, a private body, outside the archaeological survey, outside all the ministries. And so when Francis and I were writing the first book in England, which was published, that man used to publish all the papers of the National Trust of England. And we brought all the papers of the National Trust and gave them to Upul Jaikar, who was then advisor on culture to earlier to Mrs. Gandhi, but she had passed away, to Rajiv Gandhi. And there was this wonderful group of people, Martan Singh and so on, so who were all committed to, who understood heritage, and they wanted a body officially to do it. So the first name of INTACT was INTACT, intact. It stood for Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Treasures. But then they said it's only physical because we are also looking at intangible heritage like music and dance and cuisine. So then it was made intact. Yes.
Thank you. I mean, that is really related to your topic when we wanted to bring it in for our participants to have a slightly wider understanding. And now we come to the question of present time. Uh, since COVID has put us the board and try, being in this business of really providing experience, unusual experiences to people, how do you see this going forward? And of course, you mentioned one of the points was pre-COVID. What do you see?
I have a poll question.
Okay, there is a poll question, and I'm going to take this up before you answer.
Yes, you should.
If you are to attend a holiday during COVID times, what would you like the experience
That's interesting.
to contain? So either visually enriched reminders. Sorry, can I have it again, please? Visually enriched reminders, training for precautionary measures as part of the visit, and souvenirs to take home reminding about the experience during COVID time.
So if you want to travel during this, these are the three areas we would like to experience. So let's see what the participants
Yes,
say.
it's most fascinating actually. Yes.
And I do hope everybody takes their time out to now travel, and of course they wow. So that's um they'd like to visually get informative information about what to do every time, or they can train. So everybody's still looking at huge measures of safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm surprised. Do you want to take anything on moon?
No, actually, no, I'm not surprised.
It's not a very pleasant period.
I think I would have put one more question, which is that do they want to come back with a very different experience? Because I tell you psychologically what is happening. People have been in jail for 3 months. So you want to escape the jail. And so we've heard again and again what we should do, what we should do, what we should do. You have to be really dumb to have not understood about social distancing, hygiene. That has now become part of our thinking, when we touch, we don't shake hands anymore. We don't kiss anymore. So we know all that. I don't think that people want to go to a hotel to get training on that. But they shouldn't want to go because they already know what to do. So if they feel safe, which is what we ensure, and they're already in a huge area. So we had like say 20 rooms booked yesterday or day before, 20 rooms in a 25-acre property, or
Each person a lot of space.
gives a lot of space. So people are safe. I mean, they have much more distance one from the other. They can eat in their room, they can eat in a hall, they can eat in a garden, they can eat. So I think that their own safety is never threatened. So people feel good because the comments people have written is that we were so impressed with this. Of course, we spray everything, septicide, all the precautions are taken. But then you're also left to yourself because you don't want to go for a holiday in a hospital.
Correct. So that was very interesting. Any advice you have for them? What do you say?
No, I advise because at this moment you're not supposed to take a train and plane and all that. So wherever you are, look at the tourism plan. Sit in your car because your car is a septicizer. You can spray it. Where would the and go to places which are properly, and we've extensive training for all our staff. So I mean, people should be absolutely safe there.
Right. So thank you very much, Aman. We have a lot of questions for you, very
Okay,
quickly
okay,
answer.
okay.
Um, why is it important? So a question. Why is it important to restore our heritage and culture? What is your point of view?
No, my point of view is that proud of our heritage because not every country has it. So why would we not preserve what we are proud of? Do we just want to be? Suppose you go to the moon and start living. There is no Ellora. Take one example. Let's say Ellora. Now, 400 tons of rock has been handpicked over 800 years to make this amazing. Why would we not preserve this? That kind of there were other buildings or applications that are around it. They should continue to preserve it because the modern is happening in every generation. That is why your son you must as a there's a debate on it. Because especially suppose you can keep your grandmother alive forever, would you keep her alive? That's the question.
So then we need to make choices. The next question is about making choices. So if you were to restore old buildings, how would you decide which aspect would you really preserve and would you modify?
Yes, that's I think common sense.
Okay.
Suppose there was something very beautiful, structurally beautiful, visual, the facade and so on. You know, abroad they do this, they take a whole street and then keep the whole facade. And they knock the back of it, okay? They support it, and in the back of it they make completely modern buildings like the one we're sitting in. But when you are in Oxford, you go through a street and it looks like you're in old England, but you enter modern buildings, so you can do that. But if you have the back also structurally sound and which can be lived in, I think we should.
So of course that comes with some common sense, but also your experience as well.
Yeah, no, it's like saying, how is a lady well dressed, you know? You ask two ladies, you look at the wardrobe and pull out, give them the same clothes. One will be dressed better than the other because she knows that she should wear magenta with purple or do
So
something.
she has better coordination. She knows what to wear for what occasion.
Flourishing, absolutely. So,
So
that is that.
a lot of that as well. And now I have a question from architect Neetu Shri, and she has a question on Neemrana. And of course, she starts off saying it has excellent architectural elements, hospitalities, amenities. Some aspects such as the location or lack of battery-operated cars, etc., makes it, of course, much more convenient for the younger people. If you were to allow this to be accessible for the, let's say, older people or maybe the other
No,
disabled.
but you don't, but now I've got the question. The thing is that everything is not for everybody. It's like saying my great grandmother would like to have a view from Mount Everest, so, but she can't climb it. So what can you do? So, you know, so in Neemrana, there is no place for battery operated cars.
Sure.
Because it's all terraced, you know.
So do you sort of announce, do you have it on your website where you announce that?
It's all on the website. But we have, nevertheless, we've got two lifts, which were not there in the beginning. We've got an 11-story lift, which takes you 110 feet from the parking to a certain spot. And then you can go straight if you're in a wheelchair. And you go to a second lift, which takes you 4 stories, and you're there. So you can actually get all the views.
So there is certain amenities which you have introduced as and when possible.
Absolutely. Now it is possible for people. Now, I mean, you can't say in 100. Suppose you've got, like we have weddings, right? There's always, you need the blessings of the oldest person in the family, and they may not be in the best of health. So we have some rooms which are around these lift areas. Then we have palliative chairs also, which can take you a few steps up and a few steps down. So we are concerned about that.
All right. So another one on people go for more modern approach to designing hotels. How did you have this perspective of creating a royal space with antique and simple elements? I mean, they probably want to know, how did you think of this? Was it always that you lived in this environment as a child and
No, I didn't.
appreciated
I was born of refugee parents in a new house. No, you see, it's like saying I give you a tanchoi sari, all right? And you have a choice of what blouse you want to wear it. So you can wear it with the silk blouse, you can wear it with the brocade blouse, you can also wear it with the backless blouse, you can wear it with the halter neck, you know. So the choice is yours. But for us, because we're talking heritage and we want people to walk into a 500-year-old space, we don't want it to look like Singapore.
Sure.
So I think it's common sense, but in one direction.
So it's also, I think people learn to appreciate some things that with finer taste. And do you develop that fine taste? Maybe not fine taste, it's about appreciation of all kinds of things. So sometimes it's,
yes, I think what
old
you're saying,
and
right?
rustic also gets appreciated, and sometimes bling in certain situations gets appreciated because that has its own place as well. And it's about saying that, okay, the more exposure you get, the more you're going to appreciate it for its own.
I think an element of
place.
surprise is also important. You see, if you look at modern furniture, you know, the kind that you see in catalogs and you take it home, modern furniture is not always interested in your comfort. You've got straight back chair, even this chair that we have is very elegant and wonderful in English, but it's very straight back. You know, if you look at old furniture, it's so comfortable. You settle in it, they've studied angles, planters chairs. I mean, you could go to sleep in that chair, because it's just meant to, you know, give you that relaxation. So I think it's appreciation for all old things put back in the context from where they went.
Right. So I have a student, design student asking, Mylin is asking, what is the influence of foreign investment in the Indian heritage restoration space?
I think for the while there hasn't been any.
There hasn't been.
But I don't think we need it, you know.
No, hopefully not. I mean, if,
No,
if
they
our
can, but
population wants to do it.
we should be doing it. It's like saying, why, like you go and invest in the London Bridge. Why not? They should look after their bridge and we should look after our palaces.
Correct.
Oh, but I'm not close to the idea because, you know, depends on what percentage, etc. But suppose you have a company with 20% capital comes from outside. We don't have any from outside, but
So in a private category, like what you described as the third category, which are private homes or havelis, which are in ruins, perhaps that may be one space which would be.
But I know that's more a government thing. You know, government wants investment up to a certain percentage for some reasons, and now now the whole scenario has become so much more suspicious that we have to be more careful about foreign capital.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a space we don't want to talk about too much now. Okay, Bhuvi's mother, perhaps, she's asking, how do you account for sustainability while designing? I'm very sure there's always, I mean, I'm really proud to say a lot of design students and practitioners really are looking at sustainability.
Yes. When we began, it was not one, just to get water to reach there was enough. But then we had the common sense because, when you're pumping water from 250 feet and taking it up 150 feet, then you obviously know that it's something that's valued. You don't have to be told you're in a desert, pani ki kimat hai, we used to say don't waste water. But the water that went out of it earlier, we used to, collect it in our adi and then we would filter down and we would use it for gardening in a very informal way. Because 35 years ago, there were none of these consciousnesses, there were no plants. But now in our hotels, where it's possible, we've got, like in Patiala, we've got solar heating and we've got sewage treatment plant. In Neemrana, we have a huge one actually. It's like a modern project. Come and see how so much water comes and how we are cleaning it and when it actually comes out, it's not like Singapore, we drink it, but it's used for gardening. And then when you let that out, wherever you let it out, it goes down 250 feet in the sand. So that's like a huge filter. It becomes good again. So you feel good saving the water.
So I'm really happy to hear some details about how you are working right now. But I'm sure this question is from somebody who really wants to know, how did you begin? So it says, how do you choose a place that you want to restore? I'm very sure this person is interested. I can't make out.
Okay.
What do you look for?
The question is, I think it's intuitive also. You arrive in a place and you say, wow. It's like saying, how do you choose that you want to marry somebody and spend your whole life with them?
No. Is it just as instinctive as that?
It is like that, People say, but how did you know Neemrana would do so well? You have to be really dumb, You stand on the ruin, you look at all this and you say, wow. So tomorrow he's going to be ready, you've woken up and come out, you won't be saying how horrible it is. It's that enhanced, And if I give you a cup of vanilla ice cream with homemade vanilla ice cream with strawberries in it, and you're standing and eating it at the sunset, of course it will be better. But when we intervene into something in a positive way, in a sensitive way, we can enhance everything. All the senses, whether it's smell, you can put Ratki Rani when you're walking for your dinner, So you get the fragrance and people, we did a whole garden with white fragrant flowers, and somebody did a wedding and they'd written about, the garden of fragrance or something. So those who are alert with their senses see the details.
So you're looking at very minute experiences in every aspect.
One should,
Yes.
and all young designers should. Not just go by the book and look at something and copy it.
Okay, another important question is how relevant is the history of the building and the location where it is situated for you to start when you restore it to a version of it?
I think history is not important. because you know, belong to this king or that king, or if we had nothing about the history, it would be sad because we don't record many things. There's not much known about Neemrana. But when you choose a place, location is very important. You know? So if I see a beautiful property in Chhattisgarh, and restore it and put all my energy into it, and nobody can reach it, it makes sense, you know. So you have to have, yeah, or if you do it in a very crowded area which is very noisy, you can't tell the whole of India to shut up, you know, because they just will not. So you look for a few normal things. It's common sense, you know. It should be picturesque, it should be isolated if possible, it should be scenic and all that. So then the rest you can work on with nice swimming pool, making that. There is not one tree in Neemrana because there is no water up on the hill. Now they're hanging gardens and people come there to see the gardens. You know, we had people, a group of people from England who have historic gardens, ticketed gardens, and they came and they said, oh, but who laid them in the Maharaja's time? You know, nothing there, you know, because it was rocks.
So do you think you will instinctively become better at making those judgments about the next 25 projects that now?
Of course.
Wonderful.
We all become
So
better.
we all have big hopes about becoming better, but instinctively, intuitively better, I think should really encourage a lot of
No, in fact, the people are
startups.
asking questions. I don't know if there's a way for them to connect with me, but if they can on the mail, you can happily share it with them.
I will, we'll share. So any more questions that you may have, we are going to forward it to Aman, and I can see that he's getting very excited by the questions that are coming up, probably reminding him of the times when he started, and perhaps a lot of fears that you had to undergo as well.
I had no fear. You know, these are people say, how challenging, how did you dare to do this? I have no such memory. I would just drive up, do my work and come back. And every week I went back, there was something better, there was something that happened, a door was there, I slept on the terrace, then I slept in a room without doors, then I slept in a room with doors, then I slept in a room with a tap, with a bathroom. So, you know, you get.
So it would seem that you probably spent a lot more time just focusing on getting things done because you
I think work,
believed in
just get
it.
on with your work. You know, I think you get to the next stage. You know, you can't just dream. I think you must dream, but when you wake up in the morning, with your eyes open, you must not stop dreaming. You must continue to dream with your eyes open because that's when your hands are there to act also. So if you dream
Right.
and act,
I have a question for you on INTACH.
yes.
So, Mr. Rakesh asked that the intact or old monument laws were non-existent 50 years ago. But in the current context, the residents of South Delhi colonies, you are aware of them, like Green Park, Hoskas, are banned from making modifications to the old houses. And this gentleman is really concerned about the complications arising out of all this banning. And is there any practical solution to this?
I think that the laws are made for the bad people. You know, so if they didn't make the laws, right next to house cars, you would have a 30-story building. So then they ban everything. So the good guys, you know, they want to change something. If they want to make a charuka, which looks like a, you know, the same period as house cars, even they can't do this. So I think the good people suffer, but laws should be much more sensitive, should be much more user friendly, and but unfortunately.
Perhaps law should be revisited. Do
There
you
should be.
think so?
Of course, there should be. There should be because you know we've got the Sarais Act of 1830 still applicable today. You can't
And in
bring.
these modern times when there are people, population, vehicles, and many more
Even
things
in
around.
Neemrana, you cannot drink any all over Neemrana. You have to take a permission that this is the bar. You can only drink here because in the Sarais, people could drink only in the Sarai. If they got drunk and came on the road because the road was there, they would crush up people. You know, so these kind of things need to be visited.
So thank you, Aman. Really, I hope our participants have got their answers. We are very happy to have you participate so actively. And I want to thank Aman for really digging deep in and sharing a lot of, well, some of them were secrets or their tips. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
I like incisive questions. You know, if people ask the right questions, then you get the right answers.
And as he says, Any more questions, you are most welcome to get in touch with us at JSID and we will forward it to him. We are going to make efforts to bring him closer to you in future and at some other events.
We could even plan a trip actually with those who are interested, because.
Oh, lovely. So that we are going to, well, let's take it up. We are going to plan it in future and let's hope we all have the spirit to get out of pandemic with, trying to enrich our experiences. So in the meantime, I'd like to just inform you, GS Institute of Design has the August term coming up and our interviews are on. We'd like to invite you guys to come and tell us about how anything that you'd like to know about the courses. But we also have short terms being planned and it would be launching very soon in September. Do let us know. We have had surveys, but in case you'd like to take on the survey more, we would be happy to connect with you. Uh, any more information on short term, do let us know. Connect with us again and we would be supplying you with all the information. So thank you very much for participating. We hope to see you again the next to next Thursday with another interesting expert. And I want to thank Aman all the way.
Thank you so much.